having people in the space that look like you and that have similar experiences. When I walk into a space back in the day in my tech days, and I would see other faces that look like mine or just diversity within the crew, it makes you automatically feel more comfortable and more secure that I'm welcome here in this space. I don't know if you've ever been to an event or in a room where you're the only person that looks like you. Maybe you're the only female in the
Oh, I
room, or
have. Oh, I have.
yeah, absolutely, right. And I think a lot of us get a little bit, I won't say guarded, but you don't feel as
Like you belong.
comfortable in that space. Yeah, yeah. So when you walk into a space and you have people advocating, and there are women on the AV crew, and then you come in as a female A1 or a V1, and you see three other women on the crew, and there's diversity, there's white skin and black skin and brown people.
Welcome to Events Demystified podcast, where we explore and demystify the world of in-person, virtual, hybrid event AV production and technology by sharing insightful tips, tricks and tactics to make your events a success. This podcast is brought to you by Tree Fan Events, a woman-owned boutique event production agency. And your host is 𝐂𝐡𝐚𝐩𝐭𝐞𝐫𝐬, a technical event planner and producer with almost 2 decades of hands-on technical experience in event production.
Welcome to another episode of Events Demystified podcast, your one-stop shop for tangible, technical, and practical planning advice for anyone in the events industry. Today's episode is sponsored by Tree Fan Events, and I am your host, 𝐂𝐡𝐚𝐩𝐭𝐞𝐫𝐬. On the show with me today, I have Curtis Johnson, a native of Omaha, Nebraska, that relocated to Las Vegas in 1996 and began his production career in 2001. His knowledge of the industry's inner workings, decades of experience, and his strong emphasis on customer service led him into the position of sales director with Full Moon Productions, a full-service audiovisual production company from Las Vegas. Kurt prides himself on helping clients with seamless execution from concept to successful completion. Learn more about Kurt by following the links in the episode notes, and in the meantime, let's welcome our guest in.
Hello, 𝐂𝐴.
Welcome to the show, Kurt. How are you doing today?
Fantastic. Today's a great day. I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, I hear that everything went very well for you this week. So that's always a relief, right? When you're in the middle of something heavy and you can breathe and say, okay, I can cross this off and move on to the next thing.
Indeed. It's the event that we just wrapped up was a success. The client's happy and the crew did a really great job. So I'm happy that it's all over now. We can move on to the next thing.
That's awesome. Well, we haven't seen each other since we worked on an event. I think it was related to this event a few weeks back. Anything exciting that I've missed since that has happened?
Not so much. Same old, same old. I've been back and forth in San Francisco a few times since the last time we worked here, as well as another trip to San Jose. So just busy. As you know, the events industry is buzzing right now. So that's good.
That's definitely good. Well, Kurt, this conversation will be a complete treat because I rarely get the pleasure and the opportunity to talk with someone that is not just a client, but also a supplier. It's like a two-way street here. And in our industry, as we know, that's pretty rare. I only have this type of relationship, to be honest, this business relationship with very few close friends in the industry that I feel like I built over the years. And it's based on years upon years of building that rapport, both on the client and on the supplier end. So for the sake of our audience to understand what makes you so special, would you give us a behind the scenes in your story, elaborate a little bit on your career in the industry? How did you get started? How did you get here? But most importantly, what keeps you here?
Absolutely. Man, I want to start by saying I really, really enjoy what I'm doing right now. And man, just having the right attitude and staying focused on what you want out of whatever career you're in, I think is super key. I started in this events industry, as you mentioned earlier in the bio, in 2001. I started driving trucks and delivering equipment back in the day for Encore Productions in Las Vegas, and asked so many questions and shook a bunch of hands and just kind of let my curiosity lead me to where I am now. I bounced around a little bit in the industry, from delivering equipment to logistics in a warehouse. I then went from that to working in the union, the local 720 in Las Vegas, where I learned a lot of hands-on experience in the actual building of these events and shows. I did a lot of work in the video engineering department. I then kind of elevated from there to stage management, production management, eventually just kind of leading crews, and got recruited to sales, where I'm currently at today with Four Moon Productions.
And I feel like that really fits you because you're such a people's person and you just love, like you said, to go and shake hands and bring a smile on somebody's face. If you cannot, you're going to make it happen regardless. I always love your out of office messages because they always bring a smile on my face. I'm like, man, that's so creative. I need to do something like that. And then I forget and let it go.
You know, one of my favorite sayings is smile, because it's contagious. And I think it's the simplest thing that you can do to brighten somebody's day is just share a smile. You know, we all have things that are, you know, troublesome sometimes, and things aren't always easy. But, you know, when you can have somebody to shed a little bit of a smile or some laughter or some humor in your day, I think it's just helpful.
That's awesome. Well, as you mentioned, you have worked in the live event production industry for quite some time now, and presumably work with so many different type of crew members and technicians and engineers, as well as speakers and presenters. I have a question for you now. What's the secret sauce, in your opinion, to getting along with so many different type of people? Some of them, let's just say, you know, and be honest, have some intense personalities, especially under pressure.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of pressure too in this. We're always chasing deadlines and running up against, you know, trying to beat the doors and all that kind of stuff. So I think one of my things that helps me stay grounded and so fluid with everybody is empathy. You know, everybody, again, people have so many different things that we deal with as humans every day. And we do our best to leave that stuff at the door and put on our work hats and try to stay focused and positive at work. That's not always the easiest thing. You know, I think when people are having a bad day, or they're, you know, maybe under a little bit of pressure and don't know how to handle that or filter that energy properly, I think the best thing we can do is have just a little bit of empathy, give people a little bit of grace, and be patient. Everything usually tends to work out if we just sit back and be a little bit patient. When we're not, and you kind of go back and forth and you escalate the situation, and that's never good for anybody.
Do you have any potential situation that would come to your mind in which maybe things didn't work out as good, even though you did exercise a lot of compassion and empathy towards someone? You don't have to say name, obviously, but do you feel like there were situations in which you tried everything and things just didn't work? And what did you do in that situation?
Yeah, well, I'll give you a scenario. For instance, we work with local vendors and local labor because we produce events all over the globe. Sometimes you get people on site that just, again, they don't want to have a good time. They don't want to participate, you know, and work well with others. In those instances, I think sometimes it's best to separate yourself. You know, those people have to be dismissed from the job site, or, you know, move them to a different space, remove yourself from a different space on a couple different occasions, and just replace somebody. One bad apple cannot ruin the show. So sometimes it's better to just let those people, you know, relieve them from their positions and replace them.
I bet you have some stories with that. Piggybacking on the previous questions, do you think that in that case, you know, as you just mentioned, you know, bad apple can certainly spoil the whole crew. Do you feel like the quality of an event production has any correlation with how well the sales team, but also the tech team gets along with each other?
Absolutely, man. It really gives me a great sense of pride when we, for instance, here in San Francisco, we work with the local 16 union here quite often. And just to hear those people sing our praises, they love to see our Four Moon logo when we show up. You know, it's a really good, relaxing energy on site. I think you can attest to that, having worked with us a few times. It's not like a lot of production crews where people are high strung, and it can be stressful at times.
Yeah.
But I think one thing we do well is from our management all the way down to logistics and our operations team, everybody kind of has a can-do positive attitude, you know, and I think that it trickles down down to everybody on site. People see that and we're calm and we're collected and we're, good energy and positive vibes on site. I think that just the crew around us sees that. And I think that sets the tone just throughout the whole event.
Absolutely. Now, as a sales director, you've obviously worked with many clients locally, nationally, globally, as you mentioned. I would love to hear from you. What does the ideal client look like for you?
Big budgets. No, we aside from that, we are only restricted or bound by the budgets. We can be as creative and innovative as our clients' budgets allow, and sometimes we have to be a little bit more, I guess, creative within those budget parameters sometimes. But the ideal client is somebody who has a clear vision, great communication, and allows us to be a little bit more creative and innovative and bringing those things to the table. The technology is ever growing, and as if you just look over the last 10 years in the industry, how things have progressed and evolved, with hybrid and virtual events and just the way we implement different technologies on site is completely different nowadays. So I think the ideal client is somebody who encompasses all of that and welcomes it and lets us, have that creative direction, I guess, on site within the event.
Absolutely. Now, the flip side to that, obviously, you knew that it's coming. Let's just say, hypothetically, that you've worked with a terrible client. Can you paint the picture for our audience of what that experience would have been like?
You know what? I will say this. We are definitely blessed that we don't have very many clients who are difficult to work with. I'll put it that way. Granted, again, some clients just maybe they don't have the knowledge or the support to really bring to fruition their vision. And I think that's where we really do well with trying to guide them along the way. I think sometimes when people just don't know, it's important for us to kind of explain and teach them along the way, like what our process is and why that process is the way it is. There's some clients who want to cut different production elements from an event. And, you can't have a stage with no stage wash if you have cameras, different things that kind of go together. And then when they want to cut that stuff out because of the budget, it's up to us to kind of guide them and let them know that this is why we need those things in place. So that makes it a little bit more difficult when they don't have the budgets, they may not have the creativity or the innovation, and it just makes it harder for us to kind of get those things going.
So when was one time when you just say hypothetically had to drop a client because it was just difficult to work with, or it was just difficult to manage either their communication style or their personality or their event constantly changing, or for any reason at all?
That just happened recently. An existing client who we worked with often and we will work with again. But this particular event, they didn't have the support in place. So we would go back and forth and we would submit a proposal. They would get a proposal from the in-house vendor, and just, again, going back and forth and cutting the numbers and cutting the labor and cutting the equipment. And eventually, after all, weeks and weeks of pre-production and going back and forth, they decided to go a different direction. It happens, and it's, no hard feelings, and we don't take that personal. But again, the energy and effort you put into it, because we want to make sure that the clients are happy and taken care of at the end of it all. So to put that energy in for, that amount of time and then for it to not happen, sometimes can be a little disappointing for sure.
Absolutely. I think you touched on quite a bit of a important but sensitive topic there, going back and forth, which is time wasted. There is no return on investment. And a lot of event planners don't understand that as a supplier, as a vendor, when you keep going back and forth and you keep updating and you keep adjusting numbers, that's a bit of a time wasted, right, on your part. I'm curious if the process were to change, do you have any thoughts on how that would make this process easier for both the vendor on the supplier end, but also for the client, so they understand? Well, let's just say this is a first-time client and they don't yet understand the process, they're not aware of it, or they don't have yet the trust built. So any thoughts on how can we bypass a little bit of this, struggle of getting that estimate into an invoice?
Effective communication is key. I think in all of our relationships as humans, communication is key. If we can have a clear understanding of what the client is trying to accomplish, what their expectations are for their event, and we can effectively communicate our process and how we plan to pull that off, I think once everybody has a clear understanding of what those processes are, and we effectively communicate, deadlines are clearly stated up front and those things are understood, I think it helps the whole process. To your point again, we as vendors are putting different things in place, booking the labor and the logistics for the trucking and coordinating with the venue and insurances. And there's so many different details that go into every event. Those things takes time to pull it all together. So the more lead time we have with a client, 8, 9, 10 weeks out sometimes is great. So we can have time to plan and give time for those back and forth conversations. As much as we want an immediate answer sometimes from emails, it takes time to get those information and get back to people.
And the more you go back and forth and wait for that proposal to be approved and for that proposal to turn into an actual confirmed proposal, then, you're cutting into that. And that's where I see some issues, where all the things that you're hoping that are settled and logistically sound, now you have to work on them again. Like, let's just talk about travel plans that now you've got to research some more, you've got to get airline tickets and you got to get hotel rooms booked, especially nowadays for national events in which you do find yourself needing to pull gear and pull labor from different parts of the country.
Absolutely. And again, this pulling all those resources together to make this event seem seamless and just as successful at the end of it all. There's a lot of moving parts that make that happen. So,
do you feel like, again, this going back to that process, it could be helpful to do one thing? If there's one thing that could come to your mind, aside from communication, as you said, effective communication and those timelines that are important for an event, anything else that you'd, it's worth mentioning that would make that process so much less painful?
I really think it just boils down to that communication piece. When you have that in place, everything else falls in place so much better. If something happens where things aren't right or things maybe are taking a little longer, just those simple updates, hey, I wanted to get you this by Tuesday, I'll need until Thursday, or I'm waiting for a vendor to get back to me, so at least nobody's waiting in limbo for that information and they know that you're still working on it. I think our clients appreciate that we have that communication line and that they don't have to like, are they working on it? Are things moving? I haven't heard from this guy in 2 weeks. We don't want that to ever be the case. So effective communication, I think, mitigates a lot of the troubles and issues that people have.
For anyone that's hearing a little bit of trouble audio coming from Curtis, because he's in a hotel right now, coming live, and we know how hotel Wi-Fi's go.
I'm looking at my bar pool, but hey, it's the nature of the beast.
I would definitely hate to cut any of this out. So that's why I'm making a little bit of a disclaimer here, because we tried to arrange for this when Kurt wasn't traveling so much, but he's always on the road. So this summer has been a bit of a crazy summer for sure for all of us. It's the best you get. Okay, guys, this is it. But the fact that he showed up is an accomplishment.
Okay, look, I'm happy to be here. If I had to do this from the street corner somewhere, tapped into my hotspot or something, I would definitely want to be here and share my knowledge and experience with the people. So again, thank you for having me. I'll get in a hotel room in San Francisco.
Well, let's take a quick pause right now. We'll do our sponsor shout out. And while I do that, maybe we'll refresh the browser to get more juice or close some tabs or something. We'll figure it out. But in the meantime, just a quick shout out to our podcast sponsor and supporter. Before we move any further, I wanted to give a quick shout out to our main sponsor, Trifan Events, which is a boutique event planning and production agency that will come alongside you, offering personalized event planning and technical support, strategic event design, production and technology management, and flawless execution for live, virtual, and hybrid events. The team at Trifan Events is passionate about planning and producing event experiences that get people involved with true moments of interaction, engagement, and co-creation, while offering white glove treatment throughout the entire planning process, enabling you to reach your event goals with the use of creativity, production tools, and event technology. To find out how Trifun Events can plan and produce your event become memorable, go to trifunevents.com. As we're coming back to our conversation with Kurt Johnson of Full Moon Productions, I would love to change the topic a little bit here and hear your thoughts, Kurt, on the current efforts that you feel that are being made for more diversity in corporate AV production. And as an advocate, do you feel like there's been any progress in recent years since DEI became such an important topic of conversation?
Absolutely. I think although we have done a lot of work with the DEI space within our industry and other industries, there's so much more work to do. The big thing is to have advocates and people who are advocating inside different industries and inside boardrooms, inside all of these closed door meetings and in the management seats. Those people need to be the advocates for the diversity in different companies and industries. I definitely am an advocate. I'm always looking for opportunities to bring in more diversity to not only our full-time staff, but as well as our local and contracted staff as well.
That's awesome. What do you feel are some of the available opportunities for people of color and women in event productions? And what can be done to change maybe the status quo and make more opportunities available, or maybe make it more attractive for people of color and especially women to flourish in such a tech-heavy field?
Again, I think having people in the space that look like you and that have similar experiences. You know, when I walk into a space back in the day in my tech days, and I would see other faces that look like mine or just diversity within the crew, it makes you automatically feel more comfortable and more secure that I'm welcome here in this space. I don't know if you've ever been to an event or in a room where you're the only person that looks like you. Maybe you're the only female in the room.
I have.
Yeah, absolutely, right. And I think a lot of us get a little bit, I won't say guarded, but you don't feel as
like you belong.
Comfortable in that space. Yeah. So when you walk into a space and you have people advocating and there are women on the AV crew, and then you come in as a female A1 or a V1 and you see 3 other women on the crew and there's diversity, there's, white skin and black skin and brown people, you just feel, again, more welcomed. The space is more creative, and there's just so much more benefit to having the diversity on the crews, just in general.
I remember many situations, especially earlier in my career. I feel like it's a little bit better as we're making more strides towards diversity and inclusion and equity for not just people of color, but also women, all different type of people that are invited to have a seat at the table. Yet that doesn't take away from the fact that it can be challenging for anyone to maintain a career in this field, because it's a type of work that not everybody is willing to do, nor are willing to sacrifice personal time for. I remember when I wanted to start a family, that has become a huge conversation topic for me and my spouse, because I knew that if I was running, 16, 18-hour day long events, something had to change if I was going to start a family. And for the most part, things changed a little bit. That's not to say that I'm not struggling with balancing, life, work, and family. It's not for everyone. If I can push myself to my limit, it's because I am passionate about what I do. There's not a lot of women out there that are willing to do that, just because there's other opportunities. And that's why when I say about opportunities, making it more easy for women to see that there's careers in this field in which you could potentially, do stuff that you love without having to be so hands-on, right? I mean, I love to be hands-on. By all means, put me in a position where I'm teching and I love it. However, there's a bit of a sacrifice that comes with that. There's long hours. There's pre-event and post-event days.
Absolutely.
That a lot of logistics, planning behind the scenes for people like us that are in tech positions, how that affects the overall lifestyle, So just being aware aware of those things, but also making it attractive in ways in which you can live your passion. You can creatively bring something to life that otherwise you wouldn't have opportunity for. Was there any time in your career in which you were looking at this amazing event that is happening under your eyes and you're just filled with gratitude? I love what I do, and this is the reason for. Can you evolve on that a little bit? I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Absolutely. I have those moments almost daily. I'm afforded an opportunity to work in the field. I get to travel to some of the most sought after destinations in the world. I've been to, Europe several times, and guys and women that I get to work with are friends. These are just like my road family. My wife and my children have met some of these people. I've been to their homes. They've been to my home, and it's, I think I've been accused of being overly optimistic sometimes and just too positive. But I think that, man, I believe that manifestation is real. And, you choose your destination, and as long as you keep your focus. Earlier in my career and speaking to people who are a little farther advanced and listening to them tell me how they're traveling and they're doing these different shows and they're working with all of these different technologies. I'll have working with this new switcher or this new audio console. And I'm like, man, it's so exciting. And I wanted to make sure that I stayed in the trajectory so I could do the same things. And now when I talk about my career, I talk about it with such enthusiasm and charisma that people are drawn. They want to know more. Like, man, you're in San Francisco? I want to go to San Francisco. How do I do that? And I can kind of tell them, this is dig in and learn some new things and apply yourself and challenge yourself, and you'll get there. If you're doing something that you like to do and you love doing it, man, those opportunities come because people see that in you. They're like, man, you're really enjoying this. I want to work with you. I want to do more with you.
And you know what I love about you, Kurt, is that you do that, but also you create opportunities for other people to enjoy that. And I remember the first time I met you, honestly, at first, I just didn't know where to place you because you had all this like bubbly personality, over the top, charisma. And I'm like, I don't know if this guy is for real. There's a little too much for my introverted personality, and I was like, I'm like, I don't know if Kurt is like for real or he's really like, this is him, like, and I got to know you better and work with you. And I'm like, yeah, this is Kurt.
all day long.
And the optimistic part of you, always overflowing. So I don't know what Kurt looks like when he's upset or when he's sad, because I haven't seen that part of Kurt.
Very, very few people have ever seen that side of me. Very, very few people.
I guess you guard that with all you've got. All I can say is you do create opportunities for other people. And that's something that it's laudable, because not everybody is at a point or a place where they've arrived and then they want to create the same opportunity for someone else to have a path towards whatever their dream is or whatever their passion is. So I just want to applaud you for that.
Thank you. Look, the industry is so vast. If you look at statistics for the events industry, the last time I saw, I think it was a $70 billion industry. And there's so many different roads and avenues you can take with any industry. If you want to be on the technical side, if you want to be planner or logistics and hospitality, like everything has to work together. And there's so many different avenues within, again, just this one industry. That you can take. People who are looking outside or watching this interview, like, man, I want to do that. I want to get involved. How do I do it? Chase those curiosities. Reach out to somebody that that might be in the industry. Look at your local convention centers and your local event venues and just start talking to people. When people are doing something they enjoy doing and they like doing what they're doing, they love to share that information, right? If somebody came and said, hey, Uncle, I saw your podcast, I think it's great, you would take the time and tell them all about it, because it's something that you enjoy doing and you want, you build something and you're proud of it, you don't mind sharing that information. So I think, again, when you're doing something you love to do, you attract business, you attract people who are interested and intrigued, and those people who want to see you succeed and help you succeed will be in that number.
Absolutely. Now, changing tracks again on you here, Kurt. We've all had some event experiences ranging from maybe hairy to downright horror stories. Do you have any quick horror stories that come to mind in which things went wrong on stage or turned really sideways behind the scenes, sort of like totally out of the hand of the production team involved in the execution of that event? And because this is a two-part question for you, what should a planner or a sales director do when something unexpected happens during an event?
That's great questions. So I'll start off by saying yes, absolutely. We had a show not too long ago that was almost right out of the pandemic, and we were kind of getting back into live events, and this was a hybrid event and so many moving parts. They wanted the general session had to be streamed, breakouts had to be streamed, and it was chaos. It was chaos. And we had a bunch of failures on site. The pre-production was very hard. And through all of that, I mean, the building is on fire, so to speak. I know that things are like crashing and burning, but I think it's how you handle those things. How you handle opposition is what instills the confidence in the client. Yes, things are not working according to plan, or we are having failures in different things, from the management, myself, to all of the leads that we had on site, to the local labor. Everybody kind of maintained their calm and they worked through every problem. We troubleshooted where we could. And the result was there were some failures, but the client came back to us the following year. Again, I think basically because of how we handled all of that. We didn't panic. We didn't throw our hands up and give up. We worked to the very end to try to make everything right as best we could. So I think how you handle those oppositions really speaks volumes to your clients and to the people around you.
Yeah, that's very, very true. Now, follow up to that first question. How should a sales director handle the crisis in a way that, as you mentioned, keeps that client and makes that client to be a repeat client? Do you feel like if you were not on site for that event, you would have still kept that client?
I do, and the reason I say that with confidence is because the culture that we've created within our company. Again, not just our full-time staff and the guys that we contract, but just everybody that's around us. They are advocates for the company, and they get it. We don't have to be necessarily present for the leads and the people who represent Fort Moon to act accordingly. And I think again, that's what instills a confidence within our clients, that they know that our service standard will be met regardless of who's on site. So no matter if it's me, if it's another technical director or PM, across the board, we have the same service standard. So no matter who you're dealing with, they have our logo on their shirt. They're going to be caring. They want to see you succeed, and they're going to stick it out to the end.
That's awesome. That speaks volumes to a culture that you create within your company, within an organization, that will carry through from the first person to the last person. And especially in an industry where you do work with a lot of contractors, and a lot of those contractors, it may be the first time that you work with or the last time you work with. So having the ability to iterate what the culture is so that everybody is on the same page, I feel like it's super important. Now, as we're coming to an end here, and this has been a fantastic conversation so far, Kurt, and thank you so much for sharing so much of your experience and your learned wisdom in the trenches. In closing, do you have any piece of advice for any event planner out there, manager, producer, that would be helpful in improving the quality of their event and the event production from concept to seamless and successful completion, as you're passionate about?
Absolutely. I think, again, you're passionate about your career and your what you're doing. There's always something to learn, and I think the more you know, the better off we are in the industry. It's great to lean on industry colleagues, get those experiences and share experiences so you can learn and grow within the industry. We work in tech. Everything that we're doing right now, we're using StreamYard to have an interview. This technology wasn't available, years ago, and now look at us. So I think as the industry grows, we have to grow with it. We have to stay curious and stay creative and stay innovative. And if there's something you don't know, man, somebody else knows, you have to reach out. So important, man, to keep networking and ever growing.
Absolutely. I can definitely testify to that. I mean, that's how we met in the first place. I remember it was almost a year ago at IMAX. It was through just random networking. And I am so happy that I just ran into you for that. Now, as we're coming to a close, I just want to thank you personally for your insightful tips and your advice you shared. Where can our audience connect with you if they want to reach out or they want to find out more about the type of things that you do? And I know you're not the person to be on social quite often. But I know there's a little bit of Kurt somewhere on LinkedIn that pops up every so often.
I'm definitely on LinkedIn. Please, by all means, look me up on LinkedIn and send me a connection request. Aside from that, fourmoon.com, probably catch me in an airport somewhere for sure.
Run into Kurt somewhere in some random airport for sure. Well, thank you, Kurt, for this time. Thank you, friends, for staying all the way till the end. This is it for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. And I hope that you will tune in next week for what's coming up next. We're airing a brand new episode every Friday. So stay tuned for a brand new episode with a brand new guest. In the meantime, don't forget to subscribe and do connect with Kurt. He's a chill, awesome guy.
Thank you for listening to the Events Demystified podcast. If you enjoyed this podcast, please take a moment to review it, rate it, and share it with other event professionals that could benefit from it. Connect with us on social at Events Demystified Podcast. We would love to hear from you and what you're up to. If you'd like to learn more about Tree Fan Event services and find out if we're a good fit in supporting your event, can we help your event be successful with a 20-minute free consultation? Link in the episode's notes. Thanks for tuning in.